Hi, my name is Jen Yacapucci, and I'm part of the circuit breaker team. And I'm going to walk you through claiming expenses related to cost shares. We know that there are three different circumstances that a cost share could be involved with any of your placements. The first is an LEA cost share or a cost share you may have with another district. We have DCF cost share listed here, but we also know it could be with another state agency such as DMH, so that option is built into the system. And then cost shares that are related to settlement agreements where parents could be paying a portion of the student's placement. Regardless of the cost share type, you must always claim the full amount of the placement cost, not just the cost that you're paying, but the full cost of the student's placement. Once you enter that full cost, you're going to enter a cost share percentage or a dollar amount to reference the cost that the other entity is paying. And the claiming system will automatically calculate your district cost for that student's claim or placement. DCF cost shares, we know there's two different circumstances. You could be claiming with DCF for the student's placement, but the district is only responsible for the educational portion of the student's placement. When there is an associated approved day rate for that program and that matches the amount you paid, you're going to enter the full cost of the day rate with no cost share for DCF because DCF is paying the residential piece outside of what you're paying, and you're paying the full day rate, which should match your bills. So even though there's a cost share related to DCF, it's not actually a cost, it's a cost share, but it's not cost related to your circuit breaker reimbursed placements, if that makes sense. But you could have a situation where there is no approved day rate. DCF is cost sharing with you. They're paying the residential rate. You're paying the day rate. So in fact, you're paying a percentage, usually 50% of the residential rate. You'd claim the full residential rate and you'd add a 50% cost share with DCF. And I'm going to walk you through an example of that. Another example of a cost share is when you're cost sharing with another district. You'd claim the full cost here and you'd enter the cost share amount that the other district is responsible for. We usually see these as 50% cost share with one district, 50% cost share with the other district. I'm going to walk you through an example of that too. Where it could get a little bit dicier is when you have cost shares related to settlement agreements. If you have a cost share related to a settlement agreement, you must provide us a copy of the settlement agreement via the security portal. We review all of the settlement agreements that are submitted to us and make sure claims are matching what has been outlined on the settlement agreement. If you have a parent that's paying a portion of the student's tuition, you're claiming the full amount of the student's placement, and then you're entering either the percent that the parent is paying or the dollar amount that the parent is paying. And these should match what is outlined in the student's IEP. So if it's outlined in the parent, not the student's IEP, the student settlement. If the settlement states the parent is paying $5,000 towards the student's tuition every year, you would enter the cost share as $5,000. You don't need to figure out the percentage. You have the amount in the settlement agreement, and that should match the amount that you paid too. Well, the difference should match the amount that you paid. Where this gets a little trickier are these last two bullets. If the student is placed in an unapproved program or an individual student program, even though this is based on a settlement agreement, you still do need OSD approval. And I believe when you're submitting your ISP as to get OSD approval, you're submitting a copy of that settlement agreement with the request for the unapproved program. If your district has a settlement agreement that covers multiple years, and this is where it gets a little trickier, we look at each cost for each year reaching threshold. So for example, if you have a settlement agreement that you just signed and the total is $100,000, but really it's $50,000 for FY25 and $50,000 for FY26. Each of those years does not reach threshold. Even though the total you're paying in FY26 does reach threshold, the services or the placement that you're paying for FY25 doesn't reach threshold, and the service or the placement you're paying for FY26 doesn't reach threshold. On the flip side of that, if you had a settlement agreement that you just signed for $120,000 and it was $60,000 in FY25 and $60,000 in FY26, each of those does reach threshold, and we'd have to go back and look at the threshold amount that's applied for each fiscal year, the reimbursement that was done per student on that fiscal year, and then we would add placements, or we'd add an amount. We'd figure it out on our end to make sure that you're being reimbursed what you should be based on what happened in prior years with the threshold and reimbursement. So if you have an example of that, and we might see one or two of these a year, but if you end up having an example of that, please reach out to us and we will help you work through that in the claim system. Now, the mechanics of entering cost shares. I'm going to show you firsthand with examples on some of this, but I just want to go over it real quick. Cost shares are specified when creating the placement, and I'm going to show you two examples of that. However, if you miss adding a cost share, you're able to add that on edit, and I'm going to show you an example of that as well. Cost shares, as I've said, are either entered as percentages or dollar amounts. If you're entering the dollar amount, you need to make sure you're entering the full amount that the other cost share entity is responsible for. If you enter a daily rate or another amount in that cell, it's not going to calculate correctly. I strongly encourage you to only add percentages so that a 50-50 percentage is easy for the system to figure out, as opposed to you figuring out, well, I paid 50, they paid 50, what's the amount? It can get a little tricky. And we saw some mistakes with this the prior year. So unless you're dealing probably with a settlement agreement or another agreement that spells out the total amount that the other entity is paying, I would just deal with percentages. The system will accept up to 3 different cost share entities. An example of this could be that you have a student placed at a DCF residential program, and then you're cost sharing the educational piece with another LEA, and maybe the parent is paying a portion of that. That would be an example where you could have 3 different cost shares entered. When you're entering a cost share, you're going to enter the full cost, as I've said before, and you're going to enter the percentage or the total amount paid the total amount being paid by the other entity. An example of this is the full tuition cost is $100,000, but your district is only paying $60,000. So you're entering the total of $100,000 to get the system to calculate your cost at $60,000. You're either entering a 40% cost share with another cost share entity, or you're entering the full cost of $40,000 that the other cost share entity is paying. Then the system will calculate the $60,000 for you. Now I'm going to hop into the system and just walk you through very quick. Well, I'm going to jump around very quickly in here. I'm in the claim for Pawnee, and I'm in the Add Students number 2 section, which is where you're adding students and placements. If I'm moving too quick around the claim system for you, please go back to our other modules. We have a module on navigating the claim system, which will help you kind of figure out where I am if you're getting a little confused. My first kiddo that I'm going to look at is Dudley Dorsey. And Dudley is placed at Case Collaborative, and Pawnee is responsible for $35,000 of his tuition, and Boston is responsible for $35,000 of his tuition. So in order to get this in the claim, I need to enter the full cost, which is $70,000. To do that, when I opened up Dudley, it opened up to a student detail page, which is going to reflect any costs and placements that have been entered all on the student details. Then I'm going to go to placements to add a placement. Right now, Dudley has no placements. If he did, they'd be listed down here. But I'm going to add the first placement for him at Case Collaborative. So I'm going to select the placement collaborative. I'm going to type in case, and you'll see it comes right up. You could search it by Concord. I tried to search it before by CASE, but it did need the period, so then I did Concord. So you just want to be careful of that. Could be something that tricks you up. The start date, he's there for the full year. It started on September 6th of 2025, and it ended on June 23rd of 2026. And he's at the day program. Now, the annual rate I'm entering is the full cost. So Pawnee's $35,000, Boston's $35,000. So the total here is $70,000. And then it's a full year program, so it's 180 days because he's at a collaborative. There's confusion on this. We have a collaborative training that you can go look at. Below the number of days, there's a toggle button that asks, is the student cost shared? It's always set to no. In this case, we know it's cost shared because Boston's paying $35,000. So we want to toggle this over to yes. And as soon as we do that, a screen, more information populates further down the screen. And it's asking you about the cost share information of the other entity. When you look at the cost share information below that, there's, for more detailed information, there's some blue. This brings you to the training module that I'm recording right now. So if you get here and you're a little confused, you can just click here and it will guide you through the next steps. The first question it asks you is, who is your cost share with? And if you click over this I, it tells you, gives you some more information as well. So here are all the places that you can choose other cost shares with. We see all the state agencies listed here. As I mentioned, we know sometimes you have cost share with DMH or DPH. They're here to select. Other is also here. That's when you would select if the parent is paying a portion. But in this case, we're doing a cost share with Boston, so you would select second LEA. And once you select second LEA, right above that, it's asking you who's this other LEA. So you're just going to type right in here, Boston. And now it's asking the amount that Boston is paying or the percentage. We know Boston's paying 50%, so we're just going to add 50. And you'll see it's telling you your total cost of the placement is $35,000, and that is correct. We're going to click next. And it brings us back to the placement page, but we don't see his placement down here. In order to populate that, you want to click refresh. And now here's his placement. Let's take a look because I want to show you a couple things here. We see his placements at case. I opened up the placement. I'm on the placement details. Here's the case program. We entered the total cost of $70,000. The total cost share, this is the amount that Boston is paying, is $35,000, which leaves your cost at $35,000. And we can scroll down and we see some other, this is the daily rate that was calculated, the annual rate. And now here's the cost share information. It's a second LEA cost share with 50%. And further down on the right, you see that it's with Boston. If you needed to change that, you could by editing it. Now I want to go to the student details. So we're on the placement details. We see the placement number here. I'm just going to click on Dudley Sassid. And that brings us to the student details. So now your adjusted cost here is $35,000. You'll see that you're going to have a net instructional cost of $82,8450, which is what your reimbursement would be based on. But how is that happening when the $35,000 does not reach threshold? That's because if you look at the amount of threshold that was applied, it's split in half. This happens when you're cost sharing with another district. We apply half the threshold to one district and the other half gets applied to Boston if Boston claims the student. So just something to be aware of when you're cost sharing with another district. Your threshold is split when there's a 50-50 cost share between both districts. So even though the total of $35,000, which is your cost, doesn't reach the full threshold, We're only applying half the threshold to your claim, and we're applying the other half to Boston's claim. Okay, so if you have any questions on that, please reach out to us. The second kiddo that I want to look at, I'm going to go out of order here a little bit because I want to tie things in, is going to be Thomas Riddle. Thomas has no placements. We see the zero cost here. Thomas is placed at Kennedy Day School, and his parents are paying $10,000 towards his tuition. Kennedy Day School is a private approved program, so that's the placement I'm going to select. And actually, before I do that, let's take a look at the CB7 real quick, which again, if I'm moving quickly, please go back to our other training. And I want to look up Kennedy Day School and show it to you. So I can do a search here and type in Kennedy. And here's Kennedy Day School. And the start and end date for this school is 7/7 through June 18th. And you'll see that it's 200 days, and the number, why can't I scroll over? Oh, let me go down here, is 5037010. I'm just going to write 101 so I know that that's what I'm matching it to. Now I'm going to go back to his placement. Thomas Riddle. I'm going to add the placement for OSD, approved programs, private approved. And the program is Kennedy Day School. So I can start typing in Kennedy. And here it comes, and it ended in 101. We see that here. I just wanted to make sure I was selecting the right program. And the start date is July 7th of 2025. His end date is June 18th of 2026. And the placement type is day. And now it's asking, is the student cost shared, below the comment section on the private approved? I'm going to click over yes. And it's saying, who is the cost share with? It's with the parent. And how much or what percentage is the parent paying? In this case, the settlement states that the parent is paying $10,000. So I'm going to add $10,000 here. And you see, as soon as I start typing the other, if I wanted to do another cost share, I could, but in this case, I only want one with the parent. And I'm going to click next. And now this is a bit of a confirmation page. It's confirming that I selected the right program for this student. This doesn't necessarily match the amount that you paid because this is the approved rates for this program. And it's saying, is this where the student was placed? And is this the program you meant to claim? And it is. I'm going to click next. And now it tells us that our placement cost is $123,788. And that makes sense because if we look at the rates that this system is pulling from the CB7, which is the approved rates, it's saying for the total year, the cost of this program is $133,078. $133,078. Okay. But minus the $10,000 from the family that the parents are paying, that brings us to the $123,000. So we're going to click next here. And just like Dudley, the placement's not here. So we need to press refresh to see Harry's placement. And here it is here. I'm going to just go quickly to his student. Well, actually, let me go to his placement. I'll do the same thing I did with Dudley. Now I'm in his placement for Kennedy Day School. And we see the total cost was $133,788, less the $10,000 that the parent is paying, brings the adjusted cost to $123,788. This adjusted cost should match the amount that you're paying. And this is a good way to verify that you're claiming an amount that matches what you paid. It's always your adjusted cost because you'll see, even though the total cost you entered is $133,000, since the parents paid $10,000, that wouldn't match what you paid. The $123,000 would. Okay, so just something to be aware of with the adjusted cost, and I'm going to get into that on the next example. Now I'm going to go to a student details page because this student is not cost shared with an LEA because that's the only time threshold is split. The full threshold amount is applied. So in this case, your adjusted cost was $123,788. Less the threshold gives you a net instructional cost of $70,357. This is the amount that your reimbursement would be based on. And of course, if you ended up adding transportation later, there'd be more that would be reimbursed. So just something to be aware of with threshold. The splitting of the threshold only applies when there's another district cost share involved. So now I'm going to go back to the beginning of the claim. And I want to take a look at the SUMALL sheet because I want to show you here's a place where you can see all your cost shares being applied and your adjusted cost and making sure it matches what you paid. So here are all the students that are claimed on Pawnee. And we see Harry Potter here with the tuition cost. And oh, wait, we didn't get to Harry yet. Skip Harry. Sorry. We see Dudley Dorsey with the 70,000 that was entered, the 35,000 cost share, and we can even see here that only half the threshold was applied, which makes sense. And we're looking at the adjusted cost, and then we look at Thomas Riddle. Here's the adjusted cost of the 123, and we see the $10,000 of the cost share for the parent. Now, before I submitted my claim, I took a quick look at all my adjusted tuition expenses. The thing that is tricky with the adjusted instructional and tuition expenses, there's no way to tie back an in-district. You're only using this when you have tuition and you have all the bills that you can look at and reflect to make sure is matching. Harry Potter, my district, this is where I have a little bit of an issue. Harry Potter, I'm claiming in my adjusted cost $236,699. However, when I looked back at my bills, my district only paid $118,000, $118,349. So I'm missing either I've claimed the wrong program here or I know I'm missing a cost share. So I want to go back and I want to look at Harry Potter. Let's see what I did here because there's a mistake. So we see Harry here. I'm going to open him up. And we can look at his details page, but this only gives me the full amount. If there's other placements here, I wouldn't know that just by looking at the details. So I want to open up his placements. Scrolling down, I see I have one placement here at Devereaux Glenholm School. And I know I only paid $118,349, which is 50% of the cost that I've claimed, the total cost here. So I know I must have I know because I have a cost share agreement with DCF and I didn't claim that. So now I need to enter it. So this is a placement that's already been created and the program is correct because I'm paying 50% of the cost related to this program. And let's go back to the CB7, which I still have open. And let's take a look at Devereaux. Oops, little typo there. Okay, Devereaux. So here's the Devereaux Glenholm School, and it's a residential program. Looks like there were two rates. That's fine, but there's no day program. So with this residential program, I'm definitely paying 50% of that cost. So I need to enter that with DCF. And if you scroll down to the placement, I'm in his placement. You see it here at the top. We see the Devereaux Glenholm School. And it's 100% of the cost. There's no other cost share referenced here. We need to enter that now. So we scroll down and we see a cost share section of the placement. Next to that, there's some pencils. We're just going to click on that pencil and it's going to ask us the same questions it asked us when we were entering placements. Who is your cost share with? This cost share is with DCF and DCF is paying 50% of the student's cost. No other information is necessary. I'm going to click Save. And now we're going to scroll up and we see the adjusted cost has now been updated to reflect the amount that I paid, which is $118,349. And when we scroll down, we also see the total cost was entered of $236,699. The total cost share, which is $118,349, is the amount that DCF is responsible for. And the adjusted cost matches the amount I'm paying, which is $118,349.52. So this has now been updated. And if I go back to my SUMALL, and I need to refresh it because I've made a change since I opened it. Let's take a look at Harry Potter. And now we see Harry Potter has been changed to reflect a cost share, and my adjusted cost has also changed. So now I'd be reimbursed on the correct amount. Please take a look at your adjusted cost, especially if you have different cost shares at your district, just to make sure everything's being claimed correctly, that your adjusted cost matches in your tuition. I mean, even if you have cost shares with transportation, you could check that here too, your adjusted transportation cost. And the other thing that you can do is also you get a total of your cost shares. So this is the total amount that other agencies are paying or a parent is listed on this SUMALL sheet under instructional and tuition and under transportation. So if you have that documented at the district level, you'd be able to tie that back to in the SUMALL sheet. That wraps up this training. If you're working through cost shares or you're working through settlements and you're getting a little confused or you're getting tripped up, please reach out to us at any time and we're happy to work all of that through with you. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.